If you're sitting in your living room in the dead of summer and it feels like a muggy, sticky swamp, your first instinct is probably to walk over to the thermostat.
Oh.
You know, drop the temperature from 72 degrees down to 70.
Oh, absolutely. Or maybe even 68 if you're really desperate and just sweating on the couch.
Right. But I am here to tell you that not only will that fail to solve your problem, it might actually make you more miserable.
Yeah, it's wild, but true.
Because if you call an HVAC technician out to your house right now to figure out why you are so uncomfortable, they're going to look at your system and tell you this massive, totally counterintuitive truth, which is that your air conditioner is making you sticky because it's too powerful.
It is such a shared, incredibly maddening experience. I mean, people feel like they're losing their minds because the numbers on the wall say they should be perfectly comfortable, but their body is screaming that the environment is hostile.
Exactly.
So they assume their AC is broken when in reality it's just, well, it's simply oversized for the space.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to me, this feels incredibly validating, but also deeply frustrating. It's like going to a doctor with a broken arm. And the doctor takes your vitals and says, great news, your blood pressure is totally fine.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Right. Like the air conditioner is technically doing one of its jobs by lowering the temperature, but it's completely ignoring the other job. And to get to the bottom of this, we are pulling from a couple of really revealing pieces for today's deep dive.
Yeah, we have some great material today.
We got an industry insider piece from ACHR News, which is essentially a technician's guide to humidity. And we're pairing that with a homeowner-focused guide from the Department of Energy, all about efficient cooling in hot, humid climates.
And both of these materials, they isolate the exact same fundamental misunderstanding. Like, we've all been conditioned to think of an air conditioner as just a cold air machine.
You turn it on, cold air blows out, you feel better.
Exactly. But a modern air conditioning system actually has two distinct, equally important jobs. And the industry has specific terms for them. The first job is called sensible cooling.
Sensible cooling. So that'll be the temperature change, right? The metric we can actually see and feel in a really obvious way.
Right. It's sensible. You can sense the heat leaving the room as the thermometer drops from, say, 80 down to 72.
That's the blood pressure in my broken arm analogy.
Yes, it's super easy to measure. But the second job is latent cooling, and this is the moisture removal.
Okay.
It's the actual physical process of pulling humidity out of the air so that the air doesn't feel heavy, and so your sweat can actually evaporate off your skin.
See, I understand the blowing cold air part.
Yeah.
A fan blows over something cold, but how exactly does a machine that blows cold air physically grab water out of the middle of a room? I mean, where does it go?
It all comes down to the mechanics of condensation. So inside your air conditioning unit, there is an evaporator coil. And when the system is running, that coil gets extremely cold. Think about taking a glass of ice water and setting it on your patio table in the middle of August. Within minutes, the outside of that glass is just covered in sweat.
Because the cold surface of the glass is pulling the moisture out of the warm air surrounding it?
Precisely. The air conditioner does that exact same thing, just on a massive whole house scale. The blower fan sucks the warm, humid air from your living room, pushes it across that freezing cold evaporator coil, and the water vapor in the air condenses onto the metal fins of the coil.
And then it just drips away.
Yeah, it drips down into a pan and drains away outside. But there's a catch here, and this is where the system usually fails us. For that latent cooling to happen efficiently, two things must occur.
Okay, what are they?
First, the coil has to get cold enough for the moisture to actually condense. And second, the air has to be moving across that cold coil for a sustained, uninterrupted period of time.
Which brings us to the villain of our story, right? The short cycling trap.
The short cycling trap, exactly.
The literature points out that the biggest culprit behind a sticky house is an oversized AC unit. Let's say a contractor installed a 4-ton unit on a house that realistically only required a 3-ton unit to manage the heat load.
Right, so that massive oversized engine is going to blast the house with an overwhelming volume of cold air. I mean, it works incredibly fast. It might hit that 72-degree sensible cooling target on the thermostat in just 5 or 6 minutes.
So it's like chugging a giant glass of ice water to cure hunger.
Oh, I like that.
The AC is satisfying the thermostat's thirst way too fast, shutting off entirely before it can even begin to address the humidity hunger.
That is a great way to visualize it. Because the unit shuts off in 5 minutes, the evaporator coil never has the sustained runtime it actually needs. It barely gets cold before the system powers down.
Wow.
And more importantly, the air inside the house hasn't been circulated through the system enough times to pull any meaningful amounts of humidity out. The water might just start to form on the coil, but before it can drip into the drain pan, boom, the system shuts off.
So let me guess the rest of the cycle. The unit shuts off. The room is sitting at 72 degrees, but the humidity is hovering at a gross 60%.
Yep.
5 minutes later, the summer heat outside pushes the indoor temp up just a single degree. The thermostat notices it's 73, clicks the massive AC back on, it blasts cold air for another quick 5 minutes, drops the temp back to 72, and shuts off again.
Over and over all day long, the coil never stays cold, the water never drains away, and you are paying a fortune in electricity because air conditioners consume the most power during that initial startup surge.
Oh, man.
So you're spending maximum dollars to run a machine that is actively failing to dehumidify your home.
But wait, if an oversized system is actively ruining our comfort, burning out its own parts from turning on and off constantly, and driving up our power bills, why do so many homes have them? This feels like a monumental failure on the part of the HVAC industry.
Well, what's fascinating here is how deeply entrenched these outdated habits are, and how human psychology plays into this dynamic on both sides of the transaction. For decades, the industry relied on a shortcut called the rule of thumb. A contractor would walk into a house, look at the square footage, and assign roughly 1 ton of cooling capacity for every 500 or 600 square feet.
That sounds suspiciously simple for a complex piece of machinery.
Because it is. It was developed in an era before modern insulation, before double-pane windows, before tight construction standards. It has a massive built-in safety margin.
So they just oversell to be safe.
Exactly. The correct method, the actual gold standard that's required by building codes in many places now, is a manual J-load calculation.
Manual J. I'm assuming that it's significantly more complex than just dividing square footage by 500.
Oh, it is a rigorous mathematical process. A proper manual J calculation takes into account the thickness of the insulation in your attic and walls. It calculates the exact orientation of your windows.
Because of the sun.
Right, because a window facing the afternoon sun takes on drastically more solar heat gain than a shaded north-facing window. It accounts for the infiltration of outside air through tiny cracks in the building envelope. It even factors in the number of human beings living in the house.
Wait, really? The people?
Yeah, because our bodies generate heat and we exhale moisture. All of that is a heat load.
But that level of detail requires time. You can't just eyeball a house and know the solar heat gain of a west-facing window.
It takes 2 to 3 hours to do it correctly. And the harsh reality is that most homeowners are simply not willing to pay a contractor for 3 hours of engineering math before they even agree to buy an air conditioner.
So contractors just fall back on the quick rule of thumb to make the sale.
Exactly. Which inevitably results in a system that is too large.
And there's a soft incentive for them to do that anyway, right? Bigger units cost more money to purchase and install.
Absolutely.
If a contractor's revenue is tied to the size of the equipment they sell, there is no real motivation for them to spend 3 hours proving you actually need a smaller, cheaper unit. But, to be fair to the industry, the sources point out that homeowners are bringing their own flawed psychology to the table.
We absolutely are. Think about it. When your old air conditioner breaks down in the middle of a 100-degree heat wave, your natural instinct is panic.
Totally. You just want it fixed yesterday.
Right. You tell the contractor, my old unit ran constantly and couldn't keep up. Just give me the biggest engine you have.
Because we equate size with power and speed. If I buy a car with a bigger engine, it accelerates faster. We logically assume a bigger AC will cool the house better and keep us more comfortable.
It'll cool the house faster, sure. But as we just established with the short cycling trap, cooling the air fast is the exact mechanism that destroys latent cooling. Fast cooling traps the moisture inside.
This plays out in wildly different ways depending on the age of your home, too, which is a brilliant detail from the source material. Like, if you live in a 100-year-old farmhouse, you probably have undersized ductwork and a really leaky envelope. Air is easily getting in and out around the doors and windows.
Yeah, and in an old house like that, an oversized system might actually run long enough to dehumidify simply because it is constantly fighting the uninsulated walls and all those drafts.
It's working so hard just to keep up.
Exactly. The heat load is so high that the machine actually gets to stretch its legs.
But new builds are a completely different animal. Modern construction is sealed incredibly tight to meet energy efficiency standards. I mean, they're basically wrapped in plastic to prevent air leakage.
Right.
Yet they often get strapped with these massive, oversized systems because contractors are still out there using the outdated rule of thumb meant for drafty, older homes.
And that is a recipe for a humidity disaster. The new house doesn't let any air escape. So the oversized AC blasts the tight space, satisfies the thermostat in 4 minutes, shuts off, and leaves all the moisture perfectly trapped inside that sealed envelope.
It quite literally creates a swamp.
It really does.
So to see how this failure cascades in real time, the data in the sources provides a perfect middle ground case study. Not a humid jungle like New Orleans, but not a desert like Phoenix either.
Yeah.
They look at a typical July day in Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
It's the ultimate testing ground. The data shows that in the morning, the outside air in Kingfisher sits at 92 degrees with 65% relative humidity. But by the late afternoon, the temperature remains at 92 degrees, but the relative humidity drops to 45%.
And I want to clarify something there for the listener. The actual amount of water in the air didn't magically vanish in the afternoon. As air heats up, its capacity to hold water expands, so the relative humidity drops, even if the absolute amount of moisture is the same.
That's a great point.
But how does that outside weather translate to our indoor comfort? What is the actual target we need to hit inside the house to feel human?
Well, the scientific comfort zone for indoor humidity is surprisingly narrow. It sits right between 45 and 55%.
Okay, 45 to 55.
Yeah, that is where human biology is happiest. If the humidity drops below 40%, the air starts to pull moisture out of you. Your skin flakes, your sinuses dry out, you wake up with a scratchy throat.
Nobody wants the desert inside their house. But the other end of the spectrum is what we're really fighting in the summer.
Right. If the indoor humidity pushes above 55 or 60%, the air feels thick and heavy. The air is already so saturated with water vapor that your sweat has nowhere to go. It just can't evaporate.
Ugh, the worst feeling.
And if you go above 65%, you are entering the danger zone. That is where you start to see condensation forming on cold indoor surfaces like air vents or window panes.
Which introduces a very real threat of mold growth inside your drywall. And here is the trap. Those oversized, short-cycling systems we've been discussing. They usually leave a house sitting right at that miserable 60 to 65% mark. The thermostat is staring at you, happily glowing 72, but your body is screaming that you are uncomfortable?
Because your body is trying to cool itself through evaporation, and the environment is refusing to cooperate.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources highlight what might be the single most counterintuitive fact of this entire topic. A house sitting at 76 degrees with 45% humidity actually feels significantly better, cooler, and more comfortable than a house sitting at 70 degrees with 65% humidity.
It challenges everything we think we know about temperature. I mean, we do not experience heat in a vacuum. We biologically respond to the microclimate on our skin, the combination of ambient heat and moisture evaporation.
Right.
So when the indoor humidity is low, down at that 45% mark, your body's natural cooling mechanism works flawlessly. The moisture evaporates off your skin, pulling heat away from your body. So sitting in a 76-degree room feels light, airy, and entirely comfortable.
But at 70 degrees, with 65% humidity, the sweat is just trapped on your skin. You just sit there feeling cold, clammy, and gross.
Precisely.
So dropping the thermostat to 68 is a total fool's errand. You're paying for sensible cooling you don't even need, trying to chase a comfort issue that a thermometer simply cannot solve.
You cannot fix a latent cooling problem with a sensible cooling tool. It just won't work.
So what is the playbook? If you are sitting in a muggy house right now, we need to outline exactly what you can do to fix this, starting with adjustments that cost absolutely nothing, and then working our way up to the hardware solutions.
Okay, the very first thing, the absolute easiest free fix. Walk over to your thermostat and verify the fan setting. It must be set to auto, not on.
Wait, I feel like a lot of people leave the blower fan turned on continuously because they think keeping the air constantly circulating helps even out hot and cold spots in the house.
In the winter, that might be true, but in the summer, it is a catastrophic mistake for humidity. Yeah. Remember the mechanics of the cold evaporator coil. When your AC compressor cycles off, that metal coil is still sitting in the dark, dripping wet with all the water it just condensed out of your living room.
Oh, I see where this is going.
If your fan is set to on, the blower motor keeps running, pushing warm house air over that wet, now warming coil. It literally re-evaporates the moisture right back into the airstream and blows it out your vents.
So you are completely undoing your own dehumidification.
Exactly. Setting the fan to auto ensures the blower only runs when the coil is actively freezing cold.
We should note one caveat from the literature here, though. Leaving the fan on is highly recommended if you're dealing with a wildfire smoke event and you need to push air through your system's HEPA filter constantly.
Yes, that's a very important exception.
But for summer humidity, auto's the only way. Okay, what's the second free fix?
Raise your thermostat by 1 degree. If you normally keep it at 72, bump it up to 73.
Wait, hold on. If I'm sitting on my couch sweating and the air feels like a wet blanket, you want me to make it warmer? That sounds like actual torture.
I know it sounds completely backward, but remember the short cycling problem. Your oversized system is turning off too fast. A slightly warmer set point forces the AC to wait just a little bit longer before turning on.
Oh,
And more importantly, it has to work slightly harder against the outside heat to maintain that new temperature.
so you're artificially forcing a longer cycle.
Exactly. You're trying to squeeze out a longer sustained runtime. That extended runtime gives the evaporator coil the time it needs to finally wring the moisture out of the air. It might sound crazy, but you will likely find the house feels vastly more comfortable at 73 degrees with low humidity than it ever did at 72 with high humidity.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The next step in the playbook requires spending a tiny bit of money, but it gives you actual power. Go to any hardware store or go online and spend $15 to $20 on a cheap digital humidity meter, also known as a hygrometer.
Right. Because you cannot manage a problem if you refuse to measure it. Put that meter on your coffee table. If it reads 60% or higher, while your AC is running its normal daily cycles, well, you now have hard scientific proof that your unit is fundamentally undersized for the latent cooling job.
So what if you get that data and you realize the free fixes just aren't enough? Your system is failing. What are the actual hardware solutions?
Well, if replacing the entire AC is out of the question, the entry-level hardware fix is a standalone dehumidifier. You can buy a highly rated one for $200 to $400, put it in the bedroom or the main living area.
Do they really make that much of a difference?
Oh, absolutely. A standard unit can pull 30 to 50 pints of water out of the air every single day.
50 pints. That's over 6 gallons of water pulled directly out of the invisible air you're breathing every single day. It just highlights how much moisture is actually hanging out in a home.
It's incredible, and it allows you to let the AC handle the temperature while a dedicated machine handles the moisture.
That's a good middle ground. What's the next step up?
The next step, if you own your home, is a whole house ducted dehumidifier.
How does that actually integrate into a house? Do you need a whole separate set of vents for that?
No, it connects directly into your existing HVAC ductwork. It pulls air from your return vents, passes it through its own internal dehumidifying coil, and pushes the dry air back into your supply vents.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is that it runs entirely independently of the air conditioner. You set a target on a controller, say 50% humidity, and it manages the air regardless of whether the main AC is running or not.
And how much do those typically run?
They run about $1,500 to $2,500, but they solve the problem completely without overcooling the house.
But let's say your central AC is like 15 years old, it's dying. You're facing a full system replacement anyway. What is the ultimate fix to ensure you never deal with a muggy house again?
The absolute holy grail, which the Department of Energy specifically recommends for hot, humid climates, is a system with a variable speed compressor.
How is that mechanically different from the systems we all grew up with?
So a traditional single-stage compressor is like driving a car by either flooring the gas pedal or slamming on the brakes. It has one speed, 100% blast.
Right, all or nothing.
Exactly. A variable speed compressor uses inverter technology to scale its power up and down smoothly, like cruise control. Most of the time, it doesn't run at 100%. It runs continuously at just 30 or 40% capacity.
So instead of blasting massive amounts of cold air for 5 minutes and then shutting off, it just hums along quietly for 45 minutes or an hour.
Yes. Long, slow, continuous cycles. That is the exact perfect physical condition for latent cooling. The evaporator coil stays constantly cold, continuously pulling water out of the air hour after hour without dropping the physical temperature in the room too low.
That sounds amazing.
They do cost roughly $2,000 to $4,000 more upfront than a standard system, but the payback in comfort and the savings from running a smaller motor continuously rather than dealing with massive startup surges is just unmatched.
I want to tie all these threads together with a brilliant observation from Dave, the HVAC technician, quoted in the ACHR news piece. He perfectly captures the absurdity of how we currently operate our homes.
What did he say?
He says, cranking the thermostat to 68 to fix a humidity problem is like cranking the radio louder to fix bad reception. You are not solving the right problem. You are just making yourself colder while you stay uncomfortable.
That is spot on. It highlights the fundamental mismatch between the tool we are blindly using and the complex biological problem we're actually trying to solve.
So today, go check your fan settings, make sure the blower is on auto, invest $15 in a humidity meter so you actually know what environment you are living in, and remember that the little plastic box on your wall is only giving you half the story.
You know, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a fascinating question about thermal monotony in our biology.
What do you mean?
Well, we've engineered our lives around this expectation of a perfect, static 72 degrees year-round. But by using thermostats as an absolute crutch, treating any slight deviation as an emergency to be solved with a bigger machine, are we fundamentally dulling our natural biological ability to acclimate to the seasons?
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting point.
We fight the environment with brute force instead of working with it. And in doing so, we might actually be making ourselves less resilient to the world outside our walls.
It makes you wonder how much comfort we're sacrificing by demanding total control.
Hmm.
The next time you feel a chill in your living room but your skin still feels sticky, ask yourself, who is actually the authority on your comfort? Is it you and what your body is actually experiencing? Or are you taking orders from a piece of plastic on the wall that is obsessively measuring the exact wrong thing? Stop staring at the numbers and start treating the actual problem.